What's going on, draft fans? Welcome back to Cover One, the NFL Draft Podcast. I'm your host, Russell Brown, doing another edition of the show on a very unfortunate day in the NFL, as we all know it as Black Monday. It's the day where the regular season comes to a close and we start finding out about our favorite NFL teams going in a new direction, from firing coaches, general managers, and everything else in between. And we're going to just jump right in because we got about just a little bit over an hour until kickoff in the national championship game. I want to touch on that a little bit, but I also want to go over the top 15 of the draft order that was released pretty much after yesterday's results of the NFL, the final week 18. But we got to get into Black Monday stuff and the coaches that have been let go. One of the teams, Carolina, there was conversation. There was maybe some people thinking that maybe Matt Rule was going to be out with how bad this year has gone. It started off great, whereas they were 3-0 at one point, and they finished 5-12. Not ideal. The only thing moving there is offensive coordinator Joe Brady was let go back on December 5th, where they were 5-7. They haven't done anything since. They've lost 5 in a row since that. And as of right now, the only rumor is that they'll interview Pep Hamilton, the Texans passing game coordinator and quarterbacks coach, who's done actually a really good job there with Davis Mills and the players that he has. I think if you give him somewhat of a competent quarterback, whoever that might be, maybe that'll work out for them. I mean, Matt Rule seems like a good coach, seems like he was the right guy for the job. I love how they built up that defense, but offensively they can't get it going. But we'll look at them here momentarily with that 6th pick. The big one to kind of start us off from a head coaching perspective and a general manager perspective, the Chicago Bears, by no surprise, they let go of Matt Nagy, and they also let go of general manager Ryan Pace. And it was a tough year. I mean, they went 6-11. Matt Nagy did get the Bears to 2 playoff appearances in his 4 years in Chicago. In 2018, he was 12-4, and ultimately at 34-31, that was his record. But when you look back, I mean, they moved up to get Mitchell Trubisky. They traded for Khalil Mack, and then they traded up for Justin Fields, who was on and off the field this year. Dealt with some injuries, but they have an atrocious offensive line. They brought in Andy Dalton, who Justin Fields couldn't beat him out for the job. It didn't make sense how they put that whole plan together. So the Bears, who are, I don't want to say they don't really make the splashy hire, but I mean, the history has shown that it's not what they've done over the last 2 decades or so. I mean, they had a good run with like Lovie Smith. Again, Matt Nagy started off well, but it's just gone really south there. So there is some talent. I think Justin Fields is a prime piece that you want to build around. You look at Allen Robinson, you'd want to try to retain him, but with the inconsistent quarterback play, this guy's got to be looking at, hey, I could hit free agency and go. I mean, he's from Michigan. Maybe he could view it and go, I could go to Detroit and play for a guy like Dan Campbell. Maybe Jared Goff's a little bit more of a competent quarterback. I don't know how he's going to view that, but either way, the Bears looking for a new head coach, looking for a new general manager. They blow the whole thing up. Funny story with Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace. Like one of our first days down at the Senior Bowl a few years back, it was like our first time down there. Us and the Cover One crew, we get out of the car, and pulling up next to us is Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace. So that was pretty cool. It was like I think it was their first year together down there in Chicago. So it was pretty cool to kind of just greet them and say, hey, how's it going? But yesterday, the Denver Broncos, they let go of head coach Vic Fangio. He was let go on January 9th. They lost to the Chiefs on Saturday. They finished 7-10. Vic is 19-30 as a head coach. He's had a defensive coordinator position previously with the Bears, but he's been around the league for a while with teams like the Niners, the Texans, and so on. So Vic, I have no doubt about it. I think he'll fall somewhere in like that Todd Bowles category. He'll go and become a defensive coordinator somewhere and have a lot of success. I wouldn't be surprised with some of these new head coaching jobs if Vic Fangio isn't part of of a new regime somewhere this coming season. I mean, he's just too good of a coach from a defensive perspective to not have as a defensive coordinator. So the Broncos, I mean, they can't figure it out on the quarterback side. At some point, you got to start looking at John Elway and saying, "Hey, like, dude, you gotta figure this stuff out." I mean, and you just from the top down, they have just been bad in evaluating quarterbacks, and it was so bad that they had to go out and get Peyton Manning, who there was a lot of uncertainty with him with his neck. So, I mean, Drew Lock, sure, it's fun watching him run around in circles and score touchdowns like a running back, but at the end of the day, if you don't have somebody throwing the football, it's not going to work for you, and you have too many weapons there. I mean, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Noah Fant, they can run the ball, Javonte Williams and stuff like that. Like they can do certain things offensively. The quarterback spot's holding them back. They're in a position where they could draft a quarterback. They have the 9th pick of the draft. We'll get into some of that stuff here momentarily, but Broncos need a new head coach. It's going to be interesting what direction they go. The rumor mill is Eric Bieniemy from the Chiefs, Dan Quinn, Kellen Moore from the Cowboys, both the OC and the DC there. Kevin O'Connell from the Rams has been the most recent one. An interesting one is Jared Mayo, the former player. He played linebacker. Now he's the Patriots inside linebackers coach. I'm curious if he gets a shot. I will say I'm curious if maybe they look at I know he was let go. We'll talk about it here in a minute. But Brian Flores, I wonder if they would be interested in him. I mean, with all that talent defensively, I think he could get the most out of it. And if you give him, I don't know, maybe you make the splash and you bring in Deshaun Watson. I don't know. Crazy things have happened. As we know, back on December 16th, though, moving forward, Jacksonville head coach Urban Meyer was let go on December 16th. He went 2-11. The whole thing was bad off the field, in the locker room. It was just bad. They're going to open up their head coaching search, and I mean, there's been conversation of talking with Jim Caldwell. They want to talk with Bill O'Brien, Doug Peterson. They want to talk to Kellen Moore, Byron Leftwich, the Buccaneers offensive coordinator. So they've got definitely a lot of candidates there. Really, it's just you got to get the right guy, because you have a young quarterback in Trevor Lawrence, who so many people, including myself, feel like he can be somewhat of that generational quarterback. So you got to get that going if you're the Jacksonville Jaguars. And it was unfortunate for Urban Meyer that kind of his, I think, coaching career is going to end this way. Like I said, Miami, they let go of Brian Flores today. They went 9-8. They finished strong. He went 24-25. I was shocked by this one. I really was. It was the most shocking move so far today from the head coaching perspective. You don't see this type of stuff. Young quarterback in Tua, who is, I would say, an average at best quarterback. It is what it is. And, he's obviously got some chemistry with Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle set the rookie record for receptions. He broke Anquan Bolden's 101 reception record from many years ago. So they have some pieces offensively, but I don't know. It felt like this team got stuck in the gates and waited too long to get going in this race. And 9-8 though, I wouldn't be letting this guy go if it was me. I wouldn't be doing that. But they ended up canning him, and it's very unfortunate. So the Dolphins, we'll see what they do. They've already said, we're not going to be the team that goes and hires Jim Harbaugh. Maybe that's, maybe there's some smoke there. No ideas. And then lastly, Minnesota, they kind of, I think, came out of left field with this one. More so with Rick Spielman, the general manager. I mean, Mike Zimmer, he was been talked about for a little while. He's been there since 2014, and the Spielman one is just so surprising because he began his career with the Vikings in 2006. He was a director of player personnel. He became the GM in 2012, and in 2017 Zimmer, Spielman, their team that put together a hell of a run, made it to the NFC title game, went 13-3. They were a good team, and there's still good pieces there. I mean, Danielle Hunter, you've got Harrison Smith, you've got Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen. I mean, Dalvin Cook. There's so much to work with there. They're definitely stuck with like bad cap situations. Kirk Cousins going to be making over $40 million if they however it goes. Like, he's just going to be making way too much money for the type of quarterback that he is. But I mean, they're going to open up this whole thing. They're going to definitely have to find some type of pairing of a head coach and general manager that go hand in hand and can do this right. But they've got tough decisions to make. They're going to have to make business decisions. They're going to have to do some tough things. But again, there's a lot of promise there. So we'll see what the Vikings do. Obviously, it was a disappointing season for them. They'll end up with the 12th pick at 8-9, just barely on the outside looking in too. But yeah, I mean, Minnesota, a complete rebuild there. Head coach and GM both let go. Also today, just real quick, my Detroit Lions let go of offensive coordinator Anthony Lynn. Really hasn't been the offensive coordinator for 5 or 6 weeks. Dan Campbell took over the offensive play calling, and he's done a phenomenal job. I mean, I've been quite critical of Dan Campbell at times. Doesn't have a lot to work with. He does make some bonehead decisions late in games. I don't always like to see you go for it on 4th down in critical moments, but the guy puts his stones on the table, and you love to see it. Anthony Lynn, some of his play calling, it wasn't there, and I think Campbell said it best. It just wasn't a fit. It's just what it is. Anthony Lynn is a very good coach. I know he'll find work somewhere else, but it did not work out from the get-go, and they had times where it looked okay, but for the most part, they had a really hard time going. So the Lions will open up their offensive search. I'm curious, do they look at maybe a guy like a Joe Brady who was let go from the Panthers, or do they look at, that would be kind of splashy, or does Dan Campbell say, screw it, I'm calling the offense, and this is what we're going with. I'm gonna get a passing game coordinator or something, quarterback coach, something, a run game coordinator, however it is. I don't know how their whole staff is laid out offhand, but I mean, there's a lot of things that they could do, but Dan Campbell did a really good job the last 5-6 weeks of the year to give Lions fans hope from an offensive perspective without as much talent as other teams. Lastly, the New York Giants. They let go of Jason Garrett, Freddie Kitchens, and we knew Jason Garrett. That was right around Thanksgiving, but Freddie Kitchens came in. This offense got worse. Saquon looks like he's lost every bit of burst and speed that he has to his game. Poor quarterback play when you got Mike Glennon and Jake Fromm out there. But how in the world does this 4-13 team with Dave Gettleman retiring, how do you go, yeah, we're going to bring in a new GM, but we're going to keep Joe Judge? I mean, that's what it sounds like right now, and it does not make sense. Joe Judge is god-awful. I've said it time and time again. I said it last November. I said the guy's a clown. The guy should be let go. And he's still in New York. I mean, it's 3rd and 10 yesterday, 3rd and 9, whatever it was, against Washington. And sure, their backs were against the wall, the goal line was there, but he calls a quarterback sneak, a very obvious quarterback sneak, in a formation, keep in mind, that looks like you're going to take a knee. It just did not make any sense whatsoever with what this team was doing, and it has made no sense whatsoever. Joe Judge on pressers, he's like, this locker room is together. This locker room has been great. There's no animosity here. If you're saying all these things, there's a pretty good chance there's animosity. It means your locker room's not together. That means the things that you're saying are just protecting your ass. And it doesn't make sense because this guy he's terrible. He's terrible. So maybe the Giants will come to their senses and realize, hey, we got to turn this thing around quickly. Especially when you have pick 5 and 7 in the draft. You could hit reset at the quarterback position this year, and it wouldn't matter. The Giants are so frustrating. They're so frustrating because there's talent there, and they're a team I enjoy watching. But just lately, not so much. So that's Black Monday. It's been a long day in regards to it because you always hear all these names of potential replacements, like the Bears again. Doug Peterson could be coming in as a potential interview. So there's going to be some guys moving around. But if I'm the Giants, I look right now and I go, hey, my team needs a head coach. Brian Flores is available. I'm bringing this guy in. It's just baffling. It is so baffling. It's baffling. It's just so, whatever. It is what it is. Anyways, onto the draft side of things. Enough of the coaches, enough of the stuff that I don't think everybody really cares about, but what we do care about is the top 18. The top 18 is set, not the top 15. My apologies, but I do want to talk about the top 15 because there's a lot of cool stuff here. A lot of cool stuff to break down. As we know, we've known for a while, Jacksonville, Detroit, 1-2. How it played out, we don't know. Jacksonville pulls the upset maybe of the year, and they beat the Colts last week of the year, and they beat them pretty convincingly. Despite the win, they still get the first pick because Detroit beat Green Bay. Keep in mind, Green Bay didn't play Aaron Rodgers for the whole game. They took guys out in the middle of series. It's just how it kind of goes, right? When you're first round bye, you have home field advantage. That's what the Packers are in the NFC this year. The game did not matter against Detroit. But Detroit gets the second pick. Houston, as we've kind of all seen for the last couple of weeks, they've got the third pick. The Jets have the fourth pick. And this is where it gets interesting because the Jets and the Giants, two teams in New York, two big market teams, two diehard fan bases, have in total 4 picks in the top 10 and can own this first round of the NFL draft, especially the top 10. Especially the top 10. The Jets have the 4th pick. The Giants have the 5th pick. Carolina has the 6th pick. And like I said, Matt Rule keeping his job. They are in line to be the first team to take a quarterback. They have not spent the time really to revamp their offense, especially at the quarterback position. They made some really nice picks over the years. I like Brady Christensen, regardless of them not playing him as much as you'd like. Deontay Brown I still like. I have hope for some guys offensively for them. 6th pick, you're in line. It might be a reach to some, but go out and get Kenny Pickett. Go out and roll the dice on this kid because you don't want to see the Giants behind you at 7, Atlanta at 8, Denver at 9, or even Washington at 11 consider taking a quarterback that you could easily have had. I know the defensive talent is going to be tempting. I know when you have Derek Stingley possibly staring you in the face, or Nakobe Dean, the linebacker, or George Karlaftis, the edge rusher, to pair with Brian Burns. I understand it, but at the end of the day, you need to get better offensively, and it starts at the quarterback position. And it's unfortunate because it looked like Sam Darnold was going to potentially be that guy. He just needed a fresh start. But it didn't work with Joe Brady. Sam Darnold's it's just not there. It's just not going to work. You have to hit the reset button now at the quarterback spot. You might as well go out and potentially take the best one in Kenny Pickett. And I've watched 3 games of this guy in the last 24 hours, and I really like what I've seen. And at first, I was kind of hesitant, and I was like, let me keep watching. I keep watching, and I keep loving what I see. And he reminds me of how he moves in and out of the pocket, a little bit of like Derek Carr, and I think that's good. I really do. I know Derek Carr's not the greatest quarterback in the world, but he's got his team in the playoffs, regardless of all the crap that they've been through in Las Vegas this year. He's got him there. Kenny Pickett, I think, can potentially do that. Matt Rule knows him. Matt Rule's familiar with him. He recruited him. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes, but I think it's a fit, and it's at 6th overall. I think that's potentially where the first quarterback comes off the board. And I mean Kenny Pickett, it just makes sense. 7, the New York Giants, again, they're back on the clock. A lot can happen with the Giants here. I mean, there's a lot that they can do. I mean, Ike Ekwonu out of NC State. I highly doubt Evan Neal is there. They can revamp their offensive line a little bit. If I was them, I would be looking at a quarterback. I would be trying to move Daniel Jones to an AFC team that needs a quarterback, whoever it is. I'd be, hey, Denver, you want a quarterback here? Take him. And who knows, maybe you get the 9th pick for him. And even if you don't get the 9th pick, maybe you get the 40th pick. Maybe you get the 60th pick. Maybe you get 60 and 75 or 60 and 71. The Broncos give you the picks that the Rams gave them for Von Miller. So you get pick 60 and 91. You're the New York Giants. And now you have 5, 7, 36, 60, 67, 81, and 91. I think that's 8 picks in the top 100 with another pick at 109. You could do some work there. And maybe you take Desmond Ridder out of Cincinnati. I mean, maybe you take Matt Corral out of Ole Miss. I don't know. That's what I would be doing if I was the Giants, because I don't think Daniel Jones is the guy. I said it last November. You're 3 years into this. You have 2 picks in the top 10. You should be considering a quarterback. The weapons are around, though. The weapons are around him. It could maybe work out. I don't think it will. Crazier things have happened. There's a lot of defensive talent there, though, for the Giants to get better at. I think there's an offensive lineman worth taking in Ike Mekwonu out of NC State, like I said. We'll see what the Giants do. Atlanta at 8, quarterback. Potentially a quarterback, maybe an edge rusher, maybe like a David Ajabo, but I think it's a good edge rushing group. And, I mean, I don't know if he'll be there in the second round, but maybe like a Myjai Sanders out of Cincinnati if he was there. I think there's potential for him to go in the first round, though. But maybe he's there in that second round. But David Ajabo would make a lot of sense. Again, quarterback. You might have to hit the reset button at wide receiver. Calvin Ridley could be gone. And maybe this is where Jamison Williams comes into play. You got 2 young playmakers with Jamison Williams. And then you have Kyle Pitts, obviously. It's worth considering. Atlanta could be a trade-down team as well. I mean, they have picks, but they don't have a ton of picks. I mean, they could move from, let's say, 8 to 12 or 8 to 11 or 8 to 13 or something. Maybe Cleveland or Baltimore get antsy and they want to move up. Philly, they got draft capital. Maybe Philly will want to move up and get David Ajabo or Jamison Williams or something like that. You know, you just never know. So that one would be interesting. Atlanta at 8. 9, Denver. Again, they've got to get a quarterback, but I do love the thought of David Ajabo with the Broncos. I tweeted that out at Russ NFL Draft earlier this past weekend, about David Ajabo. I did a mock draft of what that would look like. So, I think it would be a phenomenal move, a phenomenal play for Denver to go out and get him, but we'll see how that goes. Seattle would be picking 10th, but they traded for Jamal Adams, and the Jets now have this pick. The Jets 4 and 10 as far as overall selections. There's a lot that they can do with this. I mean, at 4, they could be looking at Kyle Hamilton. I truly think Sauce Gardner is worthy of that conversation as the first corner off the board. So maybe this is where that happens at 10. I think they do have to look at potentially another wide receiver, some type of playmaker here. Maybe it's Chris Olave. Maybe it is a Garrett Wilson, or they fall in love with like a Drake London or something, just that bigger playmaker that can go down and make plays for your quarterback. I think that makes a lot of sense. Washington at 11. I mean, I don't know what this team does. I like the thought of Charles Cross from Mississippi State. I think this is a perfect spot for him. They need a left tackle. He's a great pass protector. Could get a little bit better in the run game. I think there's flexibility into his game. I think he does have a lower body flexibility that you love to see, and I think he is a smooth, patient operator. But from last year to this year, he just doesn't look as flexible to me. I don't know what it is. Maybe it was just that Alabama game that maybe he was playing a little bit stiff and maybe a little bit hesitant because he didn't want to make a mistake. I don't necessarily know, but it was definitely a little bit concerning to watch that game. And I don't mean he played bad. I'm just saying it was one of those games where I was like, wait a minute, does not look like necessarily the same prospect I watched earlier. So, again, Washington, they've got a bunch of areas that they could go. I still think Charles Cross, if he's there, makes a ton of sense, but quarterback could be the play as well. And I keep saying quarterback because that's just how the draft works. We all won't value these quarterbacks the same. There is no surefire QB1, but most of us will probably have second, third round grades on these guys. But the NFL, these quarterbacks are going to go. You want to get that 5th year. You want that extra year to develop your guy, especially if you're a team like Atlanta who's got a fresh face in the head coaching as a head coach in Arthur Smith. Carolina, same type of deal. Matt Rule, it's kind of make or break. You need to get the quarterback. You need to get it. You need to start making plays. So these things are going to happen. Washington, not necessarily new head coach or anything. Ron Rivera is there, but they need help offensively. If you can get that left tackle, Charles Cross, makes a lot of sense. Minnesota at 12, who knows what's going on here? It all obviously depends on head coach, GM. They could be in a position to move back just simply because, a new GM maybe wants to be a little hesitant, wants to get more picks, wants more opportunities at the lottery here. But Minnesota, I think, could look at another corner. It feels like every year we're talking about this team going corners, but they've struck out on a couple, Jeff Gladney, stuff like that. So things necessarily aren't as great as you'd want them to be with Minnesota on the secondary, but they could look at a younger edge rusher. Again, Neil Hunter isn't getting any younger. He's not old, but he's not getting any younger, but he also got banged up, and you need to have something playing opposite of him. They've tried different things. The Everson Griffin thing hasn't necessarily worked out the way that you'd want it to be. I can't even think of the other player that's been playing opposite of him. I think it's been Kenny Willekes, if I'm going to be honest. And, he was a 7th-round pick. I love Kenny. But, if you can upgrade there, if you feel like you can upgrade there and you or find something, I don't know. We'll see how that goes. But Minnesota, I don't know. They're a tough one. They're a tough team to read because of the quarterback situation and the change in the regime. Cleveland at 13, Baltimore at 14. Look, Cleveland's going to commit to Baker. They're going to have to find a pass catcher for him. Williams, Treylon Burks, Chris Olave. They got to do something, and I think this one makes sense. That's where one of those guys go, and it wouldn't be surprising if it was one of the Ohio State kids. Baltimore at 14. Who knows with Baltimore? They're like the New England Patriots to me. When I think I know, I don't know. I have no idea. When I have a guess, an idea, they go completely off the board, completely different. So I think with the injuries that they've sustained in the secondary, they could definitely look in that direction. I feel like Jimmy Smith has been there for 40 years, so maybe they look at upgrading there. Maybe there's a corner here. Maybe it is Ahmed Sauce Gardner. That'd be a great fit. I will say in the second round, not second round, but in the later day 3 of the drafts, I love the thought of Hassan Haskins for them out of Michigan. Maybe this is where an interior offensive lineman comes off the board. Maybe it's Tyler Linderbaum. Maybe it's Kenyon Green out of Texas A&M. I think there's a couple of different scenarios for them that they can go. But Baltimore, they're always a wild card. Always a wild card. So that's the top 14. The next 2 are interesting. Philly at 15 and 16. They have Miami and Indy's picks. They also have pick 19, but they're in the playoffs. So if they win their playoff game, they could be pick 24 for all we know, or 25. I don't know how it's all going to shape up. But 15 and 16, Philly, wow. Nakobe Dean, that we've been talking linebacker for them for so long. I haven't talked about Nakobe Dean yet. I think he's I think he's the best linebacker in the draft. Devin Lloyd out of Utah, that'd be a fun one for them. Again, I think that they could be looking at another wide. I know, you keep taking first-round receivers, Jalen Reagor, Devontae Smith, but I think you could use that bigger-bodied receiver. And if there is one worthy of it, Treylon Burks makes a lot of sense. I love that fit. They could look at corner. They could look in their secondary to get younger. They could look at David Ojabo or George Karlaftis. They could look at a J. Sanders, maybe a Drake Jackson out of USC. There's a couple of different edge rushers here where once you get through kind of those top 3 or 4 guys, there's a little bit of a gap, a little bit of separation. But Philly, Brandon Graham can't keep playing forever. You got to start thinking about upgrading there, and I think that's what Philly will do. 17 is the Chargers. Tough break for them last night, but you got something there. You have something there with Justin Herbert, and I'll tell you what, when you are at 3rd and 10 and 3rd and 9 or whatever it was, 3rd and 8, and you give up a 10-yard carry to Josh Jacobs, that tells me all I need to know. You need a big body in the middle of your defense. Go out and get Jordan Davis, Georgia. Come on. That's awesome. That'd be a great fit. Love it. New Orleans at 18. Can they commit to Jameis? There's no way Taysom Hill's your quarterback. Do you do you come back with Jameis? Do you look at a quarterback? If it is, who is it going to be? I don't know if there's a veteran out there that they're going to go out and grab, but, Matt Corral would make sense. Desmond Ridder would be a fun one. Malik Willis would be also another fun one. Sam Howell I think would maybe be somewhat of a Sean Payton type of guy because he's got the mobility. He can chuck it around, and he can do a couple of different things. So maybe that's the fit there. I don't necessarily know, but it will definitely be interesting. So that is the top 18. I didn't mean to go into too much detail. We'll obviously keep going through it. We will get more into the Senior Bowl stuff, but we got about 30 minutes until game time, the national championship, and I want to just briefly talk about it. Who am I putting my money on? And I'll be honest, I don't know the outcome of this game. I really don't. My gut tells me Alabama because you can never bet against Nick Saban, but Georgia, do they improve from the first time they played Alabama? It's so hard to say. It's so hard to say because I do like James Cook. I do like Zamir White in the backfield. I do like this tight end Brock Bowers. But Stetson Bennett scares me. Alabama is still Alabama. Bryce Young won the Heisman. Brian Robinson showed what he could do against Cincinnati, which, by the way, has like 5 or 6 players going to the NFL draft. Jamison Williams is going to be there, and I know John Mechie's out, but I think with Alabama, their plus money, what they can do offensively, I know their defense isn't necessarily the same, but they've got, Will Anderson is on that defense. They've got some studs on their defense. Let's not forget that. I like Alabama in this game. Plus money, give me them. I'm going to say Alabama 31. I'll say Georgia 27. And it's going to be a good one. It sucks to see football coming to a close. We'll get into the NFL playoffs sometime this week a little bit. I know the Cover One Buffalo guys are super excited about the Patriots matchup, so they're going to be doing a great job over there with that. So check them out over on YouTube and on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, wherever you get your podcasts with Cover One Buffalo stuff. I know Eric and Anthony will be doing some film room stuff for us, as they always do. And, of course, check out Anthony's Disguise Coverage podcast, which is always a good time. And I'm sure I'll be joining these guys throughout the entire draft process, breaking down prospects, going through mock draft scenarios for the Bills and other teams across the league. But it's a bittersweet moment tonight because college football comes to a close officially and we go on full-on draft mode. But it's fun at the same time because I love what I do. I love getting to do this stuff for you guys. And we've got 18 draft picks ready to go. So we're going to be talking heavily on those, and each and every single week between now and the Super Bowl, we'll be breaking down, picks 19 through 24, 25 through 28, etc. And, of course, we'll be doing some more Senior Bowl stuff. And then, of course, I'll be down there repping Cover One at the Senior Bowl for a hell of a good time during AFC and NFC Conference Championship weekend. So it will be a lot of fun, you guys. Enjoy the national championship tonight. Best of luck to your teams in the playoffs if they're in. Best of luck to your teams if they let go of coaches. We'll do some more draft stuff later this week. We'll get into some prospects, Senior Bowl stuff, the whole nine, everything that we want to do. So it's going to be a good time. Enjoy the national championship tonight. Of course, find the podcast, rate, review, and subscribe to it. Cover One NFL Draft Podcast. Find me on Twitter at Russ NFL Draft. You guys have fun. Be safe. Take care. Put the house on Alabama for Roll Tide. Everybody, appreciate you. We're out here on Cover One, the NFL Draft Podcast.